Welcome back to the shop, you guys. When last we were together, I was fumbling through the glue up of the Egyptian slash Duoflex slash salvage board bow project. So this is all just a big experiment. Here we are post glue up, and everything seemed to go together pretty straight, near as I can tell, and from what I can see, it's pretty well lined up and straight. And of course the gluing process could have gone a lot smoother than I did it. But for today's work, we're going to go ahead and take this peak on this angular midsection and really just kind of ease it over on the sander, smooth that out so that we can get a power lamb on there, and then of course back it with bamboo. The goal being, of course, to get as much bend out on this very extreme tip as we can to try and get that almost recurve effect out here, but a long working recurve. So more of like a spring type action from that limb. I'm not sure I'm going to get much of a recurve, because even at very narrow or very thin thicknesses on this ipe, it just doesn't want to bend, take much of a bend without the potential for breaking. So I think in future attempts on this style of bow, or something that we're looking to put recurves into, may default to something a little more workable, like hickory. I think hickory would actually be a really good choice in this scenario. But regardless, here we are. This is the project at hand. We're going to do the most that we can with it, and hang in there. We're going to mill the next couple parts together. I have gone ahead and cut out and sanded down a bamboo backing here, and you can see that we've got a good arc of the circle tiller on this backing. It's very, very thin. I'm going to go ahead and undo it here. You will see it's still got some good spring to it. However, I have come across a couple little concerns in the attempt to kind of aid in the bending at the extreme tips here. I really thinned it down a lot, and in this particular section you can see that the bamboo kind of had a little bit of a heave into the node, and I've got a really thin spot behind that node. It thickens up again and then out to thin, and to try and get this any more, I'm almost at a knife edge right here, and a really pretty thick piece right behind that node, all in the section that I'm expecting the limb to work the most. And I point it out now only because it really does kind of concern me if this is going to work. But if you bend it, you saw when I had it strung that it didn't have any flat or hinged areas in through here, and so I am going to go with the evidence in front of me that is not bending too much, and I'm going to run with it. The other end also pretty thin. I'm actually not too awful worried about the ends being thin. I just worry about that other end being, thin and thick and thin and thick, even with a node, and of course a node right in the middle of it all. So just pointing that out ahead of time in case this thing goes sideways on me. At least I called it before it did. Not an excuse though being made here. This build is going to go forward just like I do with all of them. Every time I have a little question at the start, I just motor through, and we will sort out the details as they present themselves. But there's our bamboo backing ready to go. I have also produced power lamb. There's a piece of hackberry. It's very narrow, very thin. I want to say about 1/16 of an inch thick, tapered out. I wonder if you can pick up the light coming through that taper. Doesn't look like it. It's kind of a gloomy day here, but this will be the piece then that goes through the handle to kind of ease these nodes. So I could not find a piece of bamboo in my stockpile where I could position a node in the center of the grip. And so I've run a really pretty long power lamb to try and ease this transition right here. So there's that part of it, so we don't have too much strain coming to bear on these nodes. Okay, so there's the next couple parts. I'm going to go ahead and grind down the grip of the belly piece that we've already made here, and we will get to work. So I have kind of rounded this edge a little bit so it's not a hard corner or a hard peak. The whole idea being, of course, to allow for our parts to bend around them bend around the grip without too much difficulty. And I've accomplished that with the power lamb. But it's going to be a little tougher to convince the bamboo to get around that. You can kind of see, like out here at the nodes, it's really attempting to stay off the limb here. And so I need to decide if that means I grind this down a little bit more, or maybe steam a bend into the grip of the bamboo. And I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and just steam the bamboo. I'm liking this grip the way it is right now. And we're not going to lose anything in terms of deflexing our bamboo. Remember that when we're gluing it in and we're employing the Perry reflex method of glue up, it is most beneficial in reflex, bending against the direction of the string. All right, so give me a moment. I'm going to go ahead and steam a bend into the grip area of the bamboo here. All my components are ready to go. Milled. I did put a little bit of a bend into that bamboo, really just enough to keep it from springing in the wrong direction. So it's not very pronounced, but it does get the job done. When I wrapped it dry, all of the surfaces mated together in a solid line and came down tight. So we're prepared to do our lamination process and glue everything up. And I want to kind of address the wrapping method that I'm going to use to get this job done. So I do have a spacer right here for the grip area, and it's going to be pressed down flat against here, and then we'll get this deflex in here and then have a piece out here. I'm sorry, I'm realizing my hand is going to be blocking the view, but this is going to set then underneath the limb. I'm going to use a smaller one just to kind of give a feel for what we've got going on, but it'll come down like this. Now, ordinarily I use something to this effect, and if I've got this hanging out down here and I'm going to just use a real flexible piece of material here to kind of give an example of how this looks. So this sits between our spacer here and then what's going to be the deflex, and as we start wrapping down the limb, we get this nature against here, And with that flat edge, typically that is the angle that that tip ends up at. And so I have put together a different piece. So instead of being square and the tip resting flat against here, I've got it rounded such that the tip would then leverage against that rounded edge. And so my hope is, and if I can keep my setup in order here, my hope is that as we bear down on this limb with the binding, and you'll see, I mean, in an extreme case, it'll just keep bending more and more and more and more toward a recurved tip. So it's not stuck on a flat surface at a particular angle, but will adjust to deeper angles. I didn't do a real pronounced curve in here because ultimately it just shoot it out. You know, you're putting pressure on two surfaces like this and just, you know, shoot it. And so I'm going to end up having to clamp this down here and hope that the static pressure against it holds it in place and will allow the limb to then take a steeper curve out here near its end. I have put everything together, and I kind of gave it a dry run, bound it down, and started kind of get a feel for what I can expect. And I was hearing an awful lot of what I would call like stress cracking. You could hear it just pulling. You could hear the fibers pulling. And I think that's just the deal with the Ipe. And again, why I would think in the future I'm going to go with hickory. So that hickory will bend on its own and not break. It's its own backing. Ipe has to have a back. It just does not deal well with tension. And so I may be doing a little too much reverse tension work on the Ipe here to get a really pronounced recurve. And so that's kind of that's really what I'm up against right now. I'm going to go ahead and glue this up. I mean, there's no sense not going ahead with the build, but I may end up, and my fear is that I'm going to end up with more of a reflex, just a smoother reflex nature to that limb, as opposed to the Duoflex idea that I was trying to get. I'm going to try and wrap further out and really concentrate that reflex out at the tip, and just kind of see what I get. I will bring you back on board once I've got everything glued up and lashed down and see what we end up with.